I guess I really should have put this on my other channel, which is for some other different petitions, but because this is, I found this, that's one of my paintings, but I found this amazing picture frame which reminded me of Robin Hood Prince of Thieves' jacket, and I did a creative journals 3D sketchbook for the art project, for a local art exhibition, and I had another book, but this frame was too wide to stick on the front of it, so I didn't use it. I ended up doing a different book, but what I did is I glued, you know when you glue all the pages together and carve it out, like basically you have to like glue all the pages and carve it out, and then you can store things inside it, and then I put loads of other things on it. I just basically like making creative things. But afterwards, after that art exhibition had finished, in this old curious bookshop, I actually found this book, which is an old book, so it looks vintage. And this actually, it was really weird that this was in there. It was almost, I felt like someone planted it in the shop, like, you know, because it was an exact perfect size. And it's quite a crooked shop with like really windy building, you know, like somewhere you'd find in Shrewsbury or something like that, a really old building. And it's amazing that I managed to like do the 3 floors of it and scan everywhere. Like I went around the shop pretty quickly, and I clocked this book basically, and it just ends up being the exact perfect size, absolutely perfect for this. I mean, and he didn't want anything for it. The guy who owns it is quite old. He's quite eccentric guy. He wasn't in the shop. I couldn't find him. It was almost like Mr. Ben when you go into the shop and you can't find the shopkeeper, but he went in there. He'd go for a walk somewhere. So I actually want to. I don't know what picture I'm going to have in this. I've got another picture, a fantasy picture of like a shelf with loads of interesting objects on the shelves. I was going to make this into a book to actually store art inside it, art snippets from various different fantasy artwork that I like. Maps, mainly maps. I quite like maps, fantasy maps, old ones. So I was going to like save them all inside it. Because I don't think this book is that rare. It's already a little bit, the cover's already a bit nice. I did clean it, I've cleaned it all. But the book, what is the book? Well, it's actually a book about Parliament, funnily enough. Parliament, past and present. So it's quite. I thought it was ironic that the book that I want to carve it out, and make it into a map holder, like a little kind of like treasure box in a way, or whatever, to hold maps in. But I don't think I'm going to have this picture in there. I should have shown you the picture that I want to put in there. But this Parliament past and present. But I thought, I mean, there is some other old bookshops around here, and there are some beautiful old books, but some of them are very expensive, like £100 or even more, and they're a lot rarer. Obviously, I don't want to carve out a extremely rare book, because that's a bit of a butcher's job. But I don't think this book is that rare. Look, here's a picture here. A nice picture. Interior of the Old House of Commons by St Stephen's Chapel, 1703, which is quite interesting. So I thought this book was called The Men of Parliament Past and Present. I thought it was called The Men of Parliament Past and Present, but it's just Parliament Past and Present. A popular picturesque account of 1,000 years in the Palace of Westminster, the home of the mother of all parliaments, or the mother of all talk shows, the mother of all parliaments, Arnold, Wright and Philip Smith, with 643 illustrations, including 18 coloured plates and a picture of plate. You know, it's quite a. I mean, I am the movie person. If I want to find out what happened in a story, I try find the film. version and watch the film. I mean, I'll read a book. You see, if it's an information book, you just go to the page of the information that you want. I mean, this is going to be a real chore for me to read all of this book, because I don't know if I've got it in me to read it now, currently at the moment. I don't think I've got the patience, but it's a very interesting book. I mean, I'd love to read it. I would love to read it. Tells you all about it. Let's have a look, you know. These are all the coloured plates in there. I mean, thinking now, it's going to be a bit of a shame to cut those up, but obviously maybe I could take them out and frame them. That might be a cool idea. I don't know how rare this book is. I was hoping that it's not that rare, so it won't matter about carving it out, because otherwise, to find a book that's got a vintage spine that's going to fit this picture frame, I really want to. I like making creative journals, which are like there's a whole. That's what I studied at college. We did creative journals. Like I really like these kind of like. In a way, a lot of the ornate books. In a way, you're making it more ornate, even more. You're adding ornamentation to it, but you are changing its function into a storage box to store information rather than just on the pages. I mean, just looking at it, Lord Palmerston. There's all sorts in here. I think the professor would probably like to have this book or even read it. Maybe he's already got it. It's a great book. Look at this. And there's the mace. It's amazing that I found it in that shop. But it's just I was just looking for it could have been any book. I mean, it's better old Bibles are good because usually they were in large number of print, and it's not a loss to humanity to carve it out. But I just couldn't find a Bible this width, you know, and it fits the perfect width. But now, knowing all the corruption in Parliament, you've got to see the irony in carving it out, like literally carving the whole thing out, which is what Extinction Rebellion want to do with the Citizens Assembly Committee, and this whole immunity of the House of Lords prosecutions getting us into trouble because they're not being held to account. I think I've seen that picture somewhere before. Some of these pictures will all be available on the internet. This is the first time I've had a look inside it actually since I got it back, because I just put it down and put it to this side. That looks like a chessboard, doesn't it? It almost looks like it is a hybrid chessboard. Old time pal. Oh, it is, look, old time pal. This is where I must have read that from, what I said before. Old time parliaments and parliament men. Northumberland out of consideration of their poverty owing to the raids of the Scots. Unrepresented in several parliaments. On like grounds, Lancashire enjoyed the felicity of being unrepresented in several parliaments. Sort of the Isle of Man, isn't it, really? You know, they've got a separate thing with a head of state. Although Nicola Sturgeon, I don't know what Sturgeon wants to... Scotland's going to be a bit of a mess if it leaves. If it's got the same head of state as the King of England, yet it wants to leave and join the Euro, it's going to be... It's almost like, it's a multi-layered mess, isn't it? Parliament in which Richard II's resignation was declared and the Duke of Lancaster, Henry, recognised as king. Really? So there's all sorts been going on in the past. Can you believe that? That's interesting, isn't it? The Parliament in which Richard II's resignation was declared and the Duke of Lancaster, Henry sixth, recognised as king. It's not 8th anyway. Forgive me. I'm not doing very good academically at the moment. I haven't been well, so that's my excuse. All these boxes and... Makes you think of what I wonder what it was like in the Celtic times when they had all the wooden constructions all the wooden, what wooden buildings and constructions, because none of the wood survived, does it? We've only got the mounds left. It could possibly have been very, very interesting to have seen all that. It's hardly some South African village or some, we definitely had something very unique going on with all the long barrows and all that, Stonehenge and all that. So it would have been interesting to see the full fruition of the wooden fixtures and fittings everywhere. Would have been really, really interesting. That's a pretty cool illustration. Memories of St. Stephen's. There's all sorts in here. It'd be a shame to... somebody probably will really like this, but I think the professor likes politics. I think the professor, Tim Wilson, would probably like this book because he does like quoting on politics. And there's all sorts happened in the past to do with changes of rulers, changes of governance. But you see, when I did read, I read the Peter Ackroyd Histories of England, Volume 3, and it took me a while to read it, but I read it all, so I know all about the Civil War and what led up to it, and with Duke of Buckingham and all the shipping taxes and all that, and sticking people in the Tower of London, and he actually gave quite a bit of a backstory to it as well. Peter Ackroyd did a good job of writing the backstory to it, which is why I kind of understand what has happened in our area due to the Liberals, the Liberal versus the Royalist versus Roundhead opposition. But I think there's something rooted in that further back, going toward, even earlier before the Civil War, map makers were reluctant to want to put things on the map, and they were omitting or moving things around because of its importance in prehistoric times. And I don't think they wanted to say, look, this was a capital, or this was a base, or this was this or that. Everything got moved to London, and I kind of think that obviously we had multiple rulers back then because we had multiple kings all around England. I think most of these pictures will be available on the internet. It's not the best print quality. It's okay though. That's a colour one. Some of these are quite nice pictures. Maybe it is a shame to carve this out. I think the professor would probably be screaming if he sees me get a knife to this and carve it out and then glue it all together and then put my maps inside it. But maybe I can find an old Bible and I should. Someone's written 386 on there in massive writing. I don't know who that is. Is that chapter 160? It's interesting how they show Parliament in Peaky Blinders when they're all sat facing the same way, when they're not sat in opposition against each other. See, they've got two sides here, haven't they, In Peaky Blinders, they do it, they show it so it's all facing one way. I guess I would like to read this book. It's a shame somebody couldn't make it into a TV programme because it'd be pretty cool. There's loads of you can watch you can learn about all this on YouTube. There's all kinds of videos, but you probably have to do it in multiple parts. Look at this gentleman. He looks like he's had a few too many pot pies, didn't he? For sure. Simon Fraser, Lord Lovat, Jacobite chieftain, chieftain of all people, chieftain, styled the Fox of the North because of his wily and intriguing disposition. He was condemned on a charge of treason and beheaded. The portrait was sketched by Hogarth as Lord Lovat was on his way to stand his trial. You see, when certain kings have been captured and they have been put on estates and kept in, they could go out and ride around the estate, but they weren't allowed to leave the estate. Things like that happened in the past. We don't know if they really beheaded, whether they staged it and then maybe it's a witness protection program. They said, okay, we're going to, take you out of position and then you'll have to, be exiled to France or something. We don't, obviously, clearly they did behead people because they've got actual heads, the remains of heads that were beheaded. So, unless it was somebody that dug up and That's quite an interesting picture, isn't it, of that elaborate boat. It's very elaborate. All the rowers as well, they're just like beef eaters. I think is that in London? You see in the Robin Hood, not the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, the other one. The what's the other Robin Hood film? The later one, the newest out of the Robin Hood films. They've got him sailing up the Thames, and then he just like stops, jumps off the boat, and then he's at London. You know. It's almost like coming in and going out, because you can go to the ocean at Hull from here where we are. Although the rivers will have been a lot deeper back then without the water irrigation and using it for canals and various other means of getting rid of water, it would have been a lot deeper. Although you can use more flat bottom boats. Coronation in Westminster, James II. Some of these kings didn't last long. Oh look, this is good. This is interesting. King's chaplains. Children of the Choir of Westminster. Judges, gentlemen of the Privy. This is meant to be people in order. Matters in Chancery, sheriffs, aldermen of London, king chaplains. Look at all these people. You wouldn't be able to fit you need 18 pages for all the lords they've got now, wouldn't you? In fact, you'd probably fill this book up. If this was a picture of all the current lords now, it'd be the entire book just for how many lords there are and how many of them are making judgments. None, because there's about 3 of them. Are they useful for anything, these lords, other than, Lord Adonis going and giving the trains an MOT, which is quite interesting to say he's giving it an MOT when his friend probably earns it. So I'll give my friend's train company an MOT. While I'm in Lords, and then when I'm working for my friend and when I go home, then in the hours of employment under the company, I'll give it another MOT for free. Memories of St. Stephen's. That's a cartoon. Uncorking the sherry. All this alcohol and drinking. Oh dear. That's a great illustration. That. Look at this. He's popping a cork open and he's got a head in a bottle. This is a brilliant illustration. Look at this. All the old bottles. I could actually frame that. If I took that picture out, I'd probably frame it. You could probably get this book transcribed on a PDF file. I should scan it all. Could scan all the pages, couldn't I? But it'd take a while, and then put them in a PDF file or something. There's the mechanisms of judgment. Some money there. I did a picture similar to that on my campaign page. House of Lords fitted up in 1835 after the fire. You see, this is it. Why would the fire happen? Why did it set on fire after the police force is invented? It's ironic that you'd have thought, it's set on fire, now we need a police force, but then it sets on fire after there's an established police force, which is how they managed to catch Guy Fawkes when there wasn't a proper police force. They managed to do something like that. Why do you need a police force? If they caught Guy Fawkes without a proper police force. Viscount Palmerston. Oh, it's Robert Peel. Looking to see if any of these people have got pistols, because they used to be armed, didn't they? In the 1700s at least. What date is this? That's a costume, isn't it? Look at that. My suitcase. Hey, look at that. You don't see the guy with a red brief. You don't see the Chancellor holding that, do you? Look at that. It's a beauty. It's a beauty. Look at that. You don't see him with a suitcase like that anymore. You're not coming in without a tracksuit. A suitcase. Where's my suitcase? That's a bit of a coy portrait. William Wilberforce. Makes me wonder if he's got anything to do with Sir Isaac Newton and that Alfred Jewell being concocted that looks like he should be smoking 5-MeO DMT from a frog. the trial of Queen Caroline in the old House of Peers. This is what we need. Look at this. A trial. The trial of Queen Caroline in the old House of Peers. Amazing. Look at it up on scaffolding. Looks like up on scaffolding, doesn't it? Looks like Balfour Beatty's gone and put a couple of scaffolding rigs up, didn't it? Or Kier. I think Kier's done it. Oh, look, and there's the man himself, Keir Starmer. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, look, they've all got the hats on. They're all taking the hats off. The carrying of the second reading of the first Reform Bill in the House of Commons. Bringing up our bill. A perfect divisional of the passages in Parliament. Character. I didn't intend this video to be that long, but look, Mr. Justin McCarthy. He's only a Mr. He's got a handsome beard there. Looks like an organ, doesn't it? It looks like some sort of organ. That's all upholstered. It's like a Chesterfield. And they've all got these. Look at that. They've got those little. How do you get onto there? Do you climb up through the bottom of it, or what? Or are they fastened to the? I think that's just a bit of juxtaposition on there. It looks like they're actually attached to the. Look at all these people, these labourers working on boats in London. The life of a riverman, yet right next to the building where it all happens, eh? The death of Nelson. Don't know what they are. Newspaper room. Aha. It's Carver. It's like Carver from 007, typing out his headlines. Oh, here's my masterpiece. Let me see my work for today. It's like his newspaper company. Now let's. This is like the headquarters of Carver, isn't it? To see what propaganda we're putting out. Let's assess my today's propaganda. Ah, yes, everything is in order. My masterpiece. It's like the Tate Modern, isn't it? That looks like it. Quite a nice, interesting seat. It's got very wide at the bottom. Really like that, actually. It's a nice chair. You see, whenever I used to go delivering to private schools, like you go to some private school out in Norfolk on the coast or somewhere, and there's all these old corridor, all these. Is that beefy? That looks like the guy from the Village Wall in Stardust, doesn't he? Looks very much like him. I think there's something to do with Guy Fawkes there. The Gunpowder Conspiracy. Unfortunately, they don't get the conspiracy of the government to defraud the public ever. Why is it always the villain who's caught who's going to blow something up? Yet we don't catch the people who are smashing all the cars in, and somebody else probably orchestrated it, and they even knew that he was doing it and caught him. Where's that furniture gone? There's some arms here. I sometimes put arms on if I write to the Queen or the King. I use my family arms because it's you write to bear arms. If you've got arms, then I usually display them because like I'm acting on behalf of my family under the right to bear arms. I'm a bit upset then. Somebody came in and I lost that page where that picture was. Oh, there. Oh no, it's not far after that. found this is an interesting picture of this. Look at this chamber. If you ever use the term chambers, this is like out of one of those Steve Jackson and Livingstone fantasy books, but it's not fantasy, it's reality. Look, with the old door. It's almost like that door in Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, but it's a lot smaller. Look, he literally opened, there's only just enough room to open the door. And he's just laid there in the bed with people stood over him, you know, it's... Oh, there's a little kitchen room in there. And we've got all the fungi hinting, or are they trumpets? God knows what they are. We don't even know what's what anymore. Do we? Angels' trumpets, or mandrake roots, or mushrooms? The mind boggles. Or whether it's some sort of combination of everything together. You see, look at these rooms they've got to sit in. That's that newspaper room that I said. So there's the chair. You see, what I was saying is, in North, I used to deliver to private schools in Norfolk, and you know, I would have to put stuff. Usually I deliver to, like, it might be the sports storage area, so you go near the cricket ground or the tennis area, or into some sort of room outside around somewhere where they store things, and you get to go inside the building and ask, you know, to find out the person who's in charge, the groundskeeper, and you got to go find them. It's not quite it's not quite at this scale, but at a smaller scale than this, you know, not quite as wide. But the furniture of the places, you see, you've got the, you know, when you say it is part of the furniture, it's those private schools that I went to, they've just got these fixtures and fittings, and you always imagine, wow, what it'd be like to be a student here, you know, and sit in this corridor, and you spend however many years, whether it's 3 years or, you know, longer. It becomes not only charismatic, but it becomes you've got an affection for it, you know. And I valued those buildings, and I always was very respectful of and kind of like those type of buildings, you know. But obviously students stay there and then they leave the school, but they spent time there. You know, you don't see Boris Johnson in the first in the queue to go to his previous school and rip it down. You know, I know sometimes they redecorate, but when you go in there, there's not a sense of it being redecorated or anything. There's definitely a sense of preserve as much as possible. And they redecorated Parliament multiple times, but it's hardly like, you know, they at least they try and make out that it's got this tradition to it, and then they've got all the books in Parliament and all the, you know, the mace and everything. It's not, they haven't exactly made the mace in Parliament into some, you know, it's not like on Back to the Future 2 when he comes out with that new Pepsi bottle, you know, that new futuristic Pepsi bottle. It's hardly an electronic, it's not like a Vector bike, is it, you know, when you used to push all the buttons. It's not like they haven't quite gone to a battery-powered electronic mace yet, although we might have one floating around soon. If Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg get their way, it'll be like some drone mace flying around, like on Doctor Who, like the new series when they go to that planet Time and they've got those like crystal diamond things floating around. They'll probably turn the mace into one of those soon, and it'll speak on behalf of, you know, each person. Probably won't be able to speak. This is quite an interesting library. They've even got ladders in there and things. Some people don't like these type of buildings and places and the schools of the upper class and private people, but I do. You know, it's just the people that are a problem, not their buildings. You know, it's the people, not the place. You know, they keep themselves a nice place. You know, but they go and destroy everyone else's buildings and fill them in with concrete and, you know, make it horrible, and yet their own places. Some of these people are traditionalists, but there's a lot of them now who are modernists. You know, like Chris Eubank is a traditionalist, but now you've got all the modernists. You know, he's inside the clock there. Look at that on a ladder. That's a great photograph. I've never seen inside there before. That looks interesting. There's like a little bit of a ramp shape in there. It's only about a foot wide there. That'd make a little, that'd make someone to do a stunt trick on, wouldn't it? Can you imagine doing a stunt trick on that and getting the shadow from the outside? There's the bell and some of the mechanisms. Bloody hell, how many crowns do they need? The font in the crypt chapel. But I don't. It's where's the plumbing come from? It doesn't come from Bath. That's a nice, beautiful. Look at that comfy chair in the look corridors. Who sits in these corridors? You know, is it? It's not. You know, it's not. Reese Mogg is in rooms 367C. You know, who's? What is it? Some sort of secretary or? Who sits in an open corridor with coats behind him? What do they do at that desk? I want to know what that desk. What he does at this desk. Oh, the cloisters, House of Commons. The clock, which is seen to the right of the picture, was saved from the fire. 1884. What he's done at this desk there? It's like checking in visitors, checking in and checking out visitors, or is it for anyone who's got a bit of writing to do? Look, it's almost like duty solicitor, isn't it? Look, he's sat there, you sit there, and then duty solicitor sits there just before you go into the courtroom to get fucked. With Barry Shearman storming down the corridor, irate that he only got given £200 million to write off Huddersfield when it could have been used for fixing the roof on Canterbury Cathedral or something. But you see, there you get Sleaford mods and Scary Spice wanting to rip down all those private schools. It's not a problem with the place. It's a problem with the people. You see, if wealth had been distributed fairly through history, then we would have all had beautiful, amazing places. You're not allowed to go to your old school now. You're not allowed to go to your old school because it's all fenced off, and I can't go sit in the playground at the place I used to go to. I bet all the posh private schools in Norfolk are fenced off. I bet previous students can go and walk the grounds. So yeah, I mean, it's unlikely that I'm going to read this book. It's such a shame that the globalists are taking over the. I think it's probably quite a lot of Americanization. You see that whole thing with London Real and Rose. You know, he's got the suit and everything, but it's London Real, London Real, London Real. It's almost like the update of the Rich. You know, the upgrade to be assimilated into the modern corporate. I'm quite surprised that they haven't knocked down all of Parliament and rebuilt. Almost like the media centre in Huddersfield or these other ridiculous futuristic buildings, Empire State's building. Looks like Brian Blessed is the Marquis of Salisbury. I might use that for Bencup.biz. That's a great picture. It's a nice picture as well. Look at that couch. What's that, psychiatrist? Have you got psychiatrists in Parliament? Oh, I need a psychiatrist. Look, the Deputy Speaker's office. Characteristic specimen of the private apartments. What? Private apartments? Or to the Parliament officials? You have got to be kidding me. You got to be joking me. Private apartments. A lot to Parliament officials. There's a couch there. I don't know if he's going to see a psychiatrist or whether he's going to get his leg over. Maybe it's Theresa May feels a bit saucy after she's just passed a new bill and she's laid back spread singing for England in there. This is the question. From what we've seen of Matt Hancock or whoever it was who was snogging behind the door. I've seen that guy. What is he, Matt? Who was it who was snogging behind the door? Snogging that woman behind the door? Was it Matt Hancock or someone else? I can't remember because I just walked past the TV. And the news showed this footage of him like having a snog in Parliament behind the door or something. So I didn't know they'd got private apartments with beds in there. Holy smokes! Oh, look, he's definitely dressed for it. Never mind Rumpole of the Bailey. Never mind rumping in the Bailey. Rumping in Parliament. Almost looks like a priest. The Venerable he's a priest. The Venerable Archdeacon of Wilberforce, chaplain to the House of Commons. I really actually would like to read this book. but the amount of time to put into it, I just don't want to put the time into reading the whole book. If it was a film, if someone made a program of it, I'd read it out. But then again, I've been listening to I have actually listened to some book audio tape, BBC James Bond, the full unedited, and it's long. It's really long. It takes a long time to listen to it. It's probably a lot longer than this. This would probably take quite a few days to even listen to someone reading it out to you.